All right, I don't plan on being on here too long, but we're going to talk about this. Georgia Southern loses to Southern Miss 38-35. And yeah, it is quite disappointing on how this game falls by the wayside, because what you saw in the second half is basically a team that is capable of winning, capable of doing some things, capable of actually being pretty solid. I mean, they outscored this team 28-10 in the, what was it, second half, and they just showed up late. Yes, yet again. I mean, Coach Clay Helton was not necessarily prepared to have this team on point, and that's what basically cost them the game. They should have been playing like this from the get go. They probably would have been all right. But hey, you see what happened, and it's pretty disappointing, because I saw it from the get go. Like, once you're down 28-7, it's like, all right, I'm pretty much done with it. I'm done with the whole Coach Clay Helton experience. I'm done with everything else behind it. The coordinators and everything that goes along with it. JC French didn't play well either, so that didn't help. But all things considered, I think this team was a different team in the second half. I mean, I have to be fair and give credit where credit is due. Is that good enough? Absolutely not, because they showed that they could win this game. They showed that they're supposed to win this game, but they waited till two quarters to do so. And that's like, once again, that's basically a coaching situation. I don't understand how the coach don't get this team prepared from start to finish. It seemed like they decided to have the preparation in place in the second half. I mean, it's unacceptable at this point. I mean, I'm gonna pull up the box score so you guys can see it, and it's just plain and day. It was like a totally different game once the second half started, and JC French still had his moments, but even then, with all of that, they were still able to make this game look like something at the end. But you can't play football like that. You're gonna have to play like this all four quarters. Let me see if I can pull this up. I know it's, oh, there it is. Perfect. There we go. Sometimes I can't get it right with this actual screen sharing thing. So, but I got it here, and we're going to, let's see, where is it? Here we go. All right, let's share the screen and show you guys what I'm talking about, so you guys can see it yourself. Where is it? There we go. All right, here we go. Once again, 38-35, Georgia Southern falls to Southern Miss, and you see the tale of two halves. I mean, just look at the box score. The box score itself tells you everything you need to know, where they were basically outscored 28-7, and then they turn right around and outscore Southern Miss 28-10. Maybe Southern Miss laid down and just hit cruise control for the rest of the game. Maybe that's what it was, and it is what it is. But when you really look at it, they did make some plays. They did play pretty well, regardless of what. No, I don't want to do that. Yeah, regardless of what Southern Miss has done, they did play a little bit better. But at the end of the day, it's not good enough. And Georgia Southern's now 2-4, and they're probably on their way to maybe scrape up 6 wins. And these are the type of games you need to win if you want to go on a run and start taking over the Sun Belt, because you already lost one to James Madison, and you don't want to go 0-2 in the Sun Belt. At the very least, you could at least won your first 2 games at home against Sun Belt opponents. But you see what happened here. Let me pull this back up. There we go. Let's look at the stats. Let me see. Box score. There we go. JC French was 24 for 43, 313 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Those are some silent 313 yards. It doesn't look like he threw for 313. It looks like he threw for 113. because of the way that he was playing. Some of those interceptions, at least two of them, was inexcusable. And I'm sitting here like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Is Davis Brent out on the field? When you look at the rushing game, O.J. Arnold was the leading rusher at 56 yards. You're not going to win games like this. You're going to have to do better when it comes to running the ball. And if you want to win games, you got to get at the very least, 100 yards rushing. You look at Jerry Pittman over here, 31 carries for Jeffrey Pittman, 31 carries for 140. And Braylon Braxton had a very efficient game. It didn't look good in the passing stats, but he had a couple of chunk plays that made it look really good. But it was a basic, solid game. As far as receiving, what can you say about Camden Brown? 12 for 158, one touchdown. Camden Brown is the star of this team, and there's nowhere around it. A touchdown in every single game. I think he went over 100 yards in every single game so far. I'm not 100% sure, but he had 158 tonight. And Marcus Sanders also showed up, 4 catches for 70 yards. He also had a touchdown. Dalen Cobb, man, I'm gonna tell you about Dalen Cobb, man, what my opinion is. But I think he's a solid player, but he has an issue with drops. He drops passes a lot, and it's really, really disappointing to see some of the passes that he do drop. Metcalf had 4 for 62. Braylon Brown had 4 for 55. Tashawn Jackson had 4 for 52 and 1 touchdown. Carl Chester also had a touchdown as well. As far as the turnover battle, they lost a fumble over there on their end. Tyson Brown picked up a fumble, and you look at the interceptions that was thrown by J.C. French, absolutely unacceptable at the end of the day. When you also look at the defense, Brennan Harrington had the most tackles on the team. Solo tackles at 7, total tackles at 12. Dorian Smith and Tracy Hill. MJ Stroud also had tackles for loss. Brandon Tyson had 7 tackles. 4 of them was solo, and he recovered a fumble. When you look at the other side, Chris Jones had 11 total tackles, 5 solo. And this is another thing about this game. You look at one side of the aisle, there were no sacks by Georgia Southern. Oh, I take that back. Chris Allen did have 1. I did not see that, and I didn't remember that. So we did have 1 sack. But on the opposite side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. J.C. French was taken down 5 times behind the line of scrimmage. And you just can't, you can't win games like this. You can't. As far as Coach Clay Helton goes, I don't know what's going to happen with him. As far as I know, that he will probably be around for the next few years. I'm not sure if they're going to buy out his contract, but I'm to the point now where I'm not against getting rid of him at this point. I'm gonna be quite honest. This is just mediocre ball, and we can't play like this. You can't win championships like this. You can't win bowl games like this. You barely. I'm not gonna say barely, because we did end up with a winning record. We ended up with a winning record last year because of this, or playing like this, but it's not sustainable. It's just not. I try to sit here and give the benefit of the doubt of everything that's going on with this team. And I want to, give it my all. I wanted to give it my best and be honest about the team, but it's just not enough, They put themselves in a bad position in the first half. They really did. I hate to say it like that, but they really put themselves in a bad position in the first half. It's not necessarily anything that you can sit here and say like Southern Miss did anything that was fantastic against us. They made plays, yes. But Georgia Southern didn't do anything to help their issues in the second quarter. Second quarter, you get outscored 21-0. You put up a good fight at the end of the game or in the second half, and that's great. But that's the type of production you need to have in the entire game. It's more like what could have been, or we actually see what this team is actually made of. Right, exactly. I agree. They didn't impress me at all. They didn't do anything special. It's like we just couldn't. It's either like we couldn't keep up or we just couldn't play we couldn't play our style of football. We couldn't play our style of football until the third quarter. You can't win games like that. I mean, the game on the box score or on the scoreboard, it looks decent. It does. It looks very decent. 38-35. It was a resilient effort to come back from down 28-7. To only lose this game by 3. It's a great question right here. Why we couldn't play like that, like the second half for the whole game? You play like this, you play like that the whole game, you win this game easily. Because if you play like this, if you played it like you did in the second half, Southern Miss doesn't score 21 points. And yeah, penalties was an issue. I think we end up having 13 penalties in this game. I don't know if they'll show that here. I don't think they have it on this stat sheet over here, but I remember at one time we had 10 penalties in the third quarter. I don't think they'll show it here. The penalties, but the penalties was like pretty bad. But I don't know, man. It's like right now I'm looking at this team and it's like I really don't know what to say because it's easily to say, yeah, it's the coaches. And then sometimes you see some players not doing what they're supposed to do. But then you see you see two different teams in one game. You see a team that look like, okay, we're just here to play and or whatever. In the second half, you have a team that's ready to win a football game. They're not there just to play. They're here to win a football game. Two different teams in two separate halves. Yes, it was. That time out before the 2-minute warning was horrible, bad. Or it was bad time management. I agree. And it doesn't help J.C. French threw some extremely terrible interceptions. And to be honest, I don't think it cost us any points. The interceptions he threw, one thing I can say about the defense, they did go back out there and get the ball back on a fumble. And we end up stopping them. I don't think they got any points off the turnovers. Which is, that's amazing in itself. But I just don't know, man. I'm sitting here like, I'm kind of like at a loss because you just don't know what to make of. What do you make of this? When you have a team that shows you that they can play ball, they show you that they can play just as good as anybody. But then you see the first half and they look like they're just, it's still the first game of the season for them. Or they just started playing football last week or something. I don't know what to make of what's going on here. I really don't. Could they hang their hat on what they did in the second half? I think so. I think they can. They can go in the next game when they play Georgia State. If they come with this same energy they had in the third and fourth quarter, they're going to beat Georgia State. But then again, when you look at, is that sustainable? I mean, is that sustainable? Are they going to continue to play like that? This is why I said they had to go on a run. What Tron's saying is exactly why I said they got to go on a run. I knew from the beginning of the season. It's nothing nobody could have told me that Georgia Southern was going to win against JMU. I knew they was going to lose against JMU as soon as I saw the schedule. You're not beating James Madison at home in this day and age. They only lost 5 games in 10 years there. Could we do it? Yeah, but I didn't see it happening. So I chucked it up as a loss. You lose against Fresno. You lose against USC. You lose against JMU. And you go on a run and hope that JMU loses. And you would have had a 3-loss season. but you still would have probably had a double-digit win season. Now that's out the window because you decide to play football in the third quarter. It's hard to argue with what the legend says because you can make an argument and say that this team actually looks like a decent team based on the third and fourth quarter. But that's 2 quarters. You look at the entire body of work out of these 6 games, you may have what? 6, maybe 6 quarters out of 6 games. And you're talking about the 4 quarters you played against Maine. And you talk about the 2 quarters you played just now against Southern Miss. Those are 6 quarters in 6 games to say that this team actually looked good. You're lucky that you're 2-4 by me saying that stat. You're lucky if you play 6 good quarters in 6 games, you're more than likely you're 0-6. So it's like it's nothing you can say about what happened. It's not much you can say. And it's very unfortunate because this team has the talent. This team could be one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. Not just the Sun Belt East, but in the Sun Belt. And they show you these small flashes of, oh, this team could be dominant a little bit. Oh, this team can hang with USC a little bit. Just don't call trick plays. Then you could probably hang with USC. Oh, we could have played it with Fresno State for a half. But that's the stuff that really makes you look like what the hell is going on. It makes you feel like what the legend's feeling like. It makes you feel like what Casey's feeling like. It makes you feel like what Marvin is feeling like. It's hard to make the case that you need to be in the Sun Belt after putting up this performance in the first half of this season. You got 6 more games left. And we're projected right now to go 4-8 because you already went 2-4 already. You're projected to go 2-4 again. That's wild. This team is too good for that. I ain't gonna say this team don't deserve it because they still play the games on the field, and what you see is what you get, and how you play is that's the results you get. But it's just so much potential on this team. So much potential on this team. And I think this is one thing that is a knock on Coach Clay Helton. Coach Clay Helton has the vision of talent. Coach Clay Helton can see talent from a mile away. He knows how to recruit that talent. But when you get the players on the field, or when you get the players in the program, it seems like that's where it stops. I haven't seen one player on this team yet that has elevated their game from when they walked in the door. A player that he actually recruited actually elevated their game once they got in the door. Everybody that we're talking about are guys that have been transfers. Cal Van Treese, Camden Brown, Bunkley Shelton, Chance Gamble. I think the only person that elevated their game since that was here that was recruited was probably Mark Stampley. And it's not a knock on all the other kids that are here because they're still good. I think OJ Arnold is very good at running back. He showed that he can be a really good running back, but I haven't seen anything that elevated his game. When you saw Jalen White walk in the door, you saw him get better. I remember watching other guys come here from, other coaches' eras or people who was like right before, Coach Clay Helton. Those guys elevated their game. That you don't see. It's something about some of these players who come in, and I will probably say Marcus Sanders is another one that elevated their game since they came in. But that's not a good track record when you're bringing in 40, 50, 60 players. You only got one or two or maybe 5 players that elevated their game since they've been here. It seems like Coach Clay Helton has the vision. He can bring people into the program, but once you get there, I don't see nobody actually getting higher. And I don't think that's anything that got to do with the players. The coaching has to do that. The staff has to get these players in position to be better than what they are. The player can't do it all by themselves. Staff didn't have the team motivated in the first half. Absolutely, they did not. They didn't. Whatever that halftime speech was, they need to have that halftime speech before the game. This is sad right here. So we may beat Georgia State, Coastal Carolina, and Arkansas State was a toss-up. That's pretty bad. He's a great recruiter. You can't and you can't take that away from him. He's a great recruiter. And to be honest with you, and I know this may sound kind of crazy, I don't think he's necessarily a bad coach. I don't think he's a bad coach. I just think that he's not coaching this team right. I don't know if that makes sense. If it don't, then it is what it is. But that's how I feel. I feel like he's not a bad coach. I just don't think he's coaching this team right. I think he's coaching this team like he's still at USC. Like you can play finesse football. When you're down here in the South, you're down in the Sun Belt, you got to play with some grit. You got to play with some guts. You got to play with some heart. You got to play like you want to like stomp these teams in the wine. You can't play you can't play these teams in the Sun Belt like this is like this a Mountain West game or this is the Pac-12. You got to understand that the Sun Belt, these guys that are down here are being recruited down here. They were built by teams they're built by factories of football, high schools that are football factories that has aspirations to be like the SEC, and in some cases the ACC. Down here in the South, they play football different. This is one of the reasons why, honestly, this is why we were able to hang with the USC for that moment. We basically shot ourselves in the foot against USC. We scored first. We got a fumble. We were punching that team in the mouth until we started finessing our way through the game. Started doing trick plays. Started doing all this crazy stuff on fourth down. You don't play like that down here. We're going to smack you across the head every single time we got the ball. This is why we were able to hang around with Boise State last year. This is why we was able to hang around with Fresno State earlier this year. Because we're just a different breed down here. Y'all want to know why App State and all these other teams or teams like App State be hanging with these other teams that are Power 5, Power 4? Because they play with that mentality. We had that mentality. You know, it is frustrating. And you know, I saw it when we played the Nebraska game. When I realized that we were able to punch Nebraska State in the mouth, Nebraska State, we was able to punch Nebraska in the mouth and they really couldn't hit back because we started playing finesse ball and letting these guys stay in the game. That's when I knew we had somewhat of a problem, but I thought he'll figure it out. He'll get through it. We go up to Wisconsin. Basically, I think we were leading that game 14-13 at the half. Punching that team in the mouth, letting them know, like, look, we may be a group of 5 team, but we're a different breed in the South. We play ball differently in the South. But what happened? We started getting finesse, started playing kind of soft, and we never could recover. Same thing happened with Fresno State. The way you played the second half against Southern Miss is the way you're supposed to play every single time. And it's frustrating it's very frustrating that we're not able to do that for fourth quarters consistently. So I think that's what Clay Helton's biggest problem is. He's playing this he's coaching this team, or he's getting this team motivated as if he's still on the West Coast. They don't, no disrespect to the USCs and the UCLAs and the Oregon States of the world, but they don't play football like we do on this side of the country. Yeah, they play winning football, but they don't play football like we do. They're not trying to punish teams. They're just trying to they're trying to outrace a team. They're trying to outrun a team. And that's what got USC in trouble earlier this year, or earlier in Lincoln Riley's tenure. That's what got Lincoln Riley in trouble early in his tenure. He's up there in the Big Ten now. He's not going to get away with that type of stuff. And they realize that. And to be honest, that's how they lost to Tulane. And I take Oregon, not Oregon State, but I take Oregon out of the picture because Dan Lanning got that team up there playing like they're playing in the SEC. That's why that team looks so different than a USC or Washington. Tron, I'm going to tell you this. If we play Georgia Southern football, and I'm not talking about like Coach Clay Helton, and I'm not necessarily talking about the triple option. When you play Georgia Southern football, that grit, that grind, that never quit, you want to knock out somebody every time you're on that field, you play that type of ball, you can beat anybody. That's what made Georgia Southern feared. Even after the triple option was gone and you had the spread option. Those kids back then, they were still trying to knock heads off. Now I don't see that on this team. Maybe Tyson. Tyson, like the only guy on defense that really want to do something like that. We thought Brendan Harrington was going to be that guy. You thought Brendan Harrington was going to be that guy? Brandon Tyson's like the only one on defense that really, him and what's that kid name? Where is he? This kid, Jakari Brown. This kid's a freshman out of Warden Robins. I don't know what this kid got in him, but that kid liked the ball. Number 20, I like him a lot. Everybody else on defense, I don't think they're necessarily bad players, but they ain't got it like that. They ain't got it like that. They showed it a little bit this second half, but they ain't got it like that. Yeah, I want to keep Ja'Cory Brown for sure. Him, Brandon Tyson got one more year. Dorian Smith didn't look that bad, but this is his last year, Dorian Smith. He didn't look that bad. Aiden Jackson looked okay. You got a few guys on this team that's actually about that life, but it's not enough. And a lot of these kids are just they're not being coached right, man. They're not being coached. And but that just goes back to Brandon Bailey right there. Brandon Bailey ain't got it to make you want. You gotta have a coach that you gotta have a coach that make these kids want to run through a brick wall. And say what you want about Coach Chad Lunsford, regardless of what he did and what he didn't do with this program, those kids wanted to run through a brick wall for Chad Lunsford. They wanted to. They wanted to go to war with Chad Lunsford every single time. With Coach Clay Helton, it just doesn't feel that way. What are my thoughts on the Russian situation? I don't have an. It's hard for me to say it's the offensive line. I think we got talented backs. I think it has more to do with the offensive line. I don't think they have a bad set of guys in the backfield. I think the offensive line, unfortunately, the offensive line is underachieved this year. Because if anything, we thought we were going to be able to run the ball and set it up for the pass. But when you only got 56 yards rushing and that's your leading rush, well, you only got 82 yards rushing and your leading rusher has 56 of them, that's not what it is. But I think it's more of an offensive line issue, honestly. I don't think O.J. Arnold or Badinga actually are guys who can't run the ball. You got to have guys to move players around, though. I didn't even listen to the game. I just had it on. I don't like listening to announcers anyway. But if they said we have no edge, I believe it. Believe it. That's on offense and defense. We just don't have the edge. It's very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. Because it doesn't have to be this way. Trying to think anything else I want to have, anything else I want to talk about before I get out of here. On offense, there's only two guys that I know that have edge. Badinga, that kid tries to play like he wants to run over everybody every time he carries the ball. And obviously Camden Brown. Those guys play like they're on 10 every single time. Marcus Sanders is like right there, right under them. But definitely those two. And we just talked about the defense, and it's like the defense is basically a product of Brandon Bailey, man. And we know how we feel about Brandon Bailey. Next game, we're going to be playing against Georgia State at home. I can honestly say that I'm ready for Coach Clay Helton to move on. I do feel like that at this point because you shouldn't have lost this game tonight. And so help me God, we lose to Georgia State next week. We lose to Georgia State next week. Ain't no coming back from that. You lose to Georgia State next week at home. with your back against the wall and you end up going down 2-5, that's the point of no return. There's no coming back from that. It like what legend said, it's over. It really will be over then. You lose to Georgia State next week. Crazy how us and Georgia State will definitely be fighting for our season next Saturday. At this point, there's no positivity can be said about this coaching staff. The fact Clay Helton got an extension. Clay Helton got an extension at the time where, to be quite honest, it wasn't popular. And he probably shouldn't got that extension. But I think that the powers that be did not want to go through another coaching situation. They felt like with Coach Clay Helton, you have some form of stability and you got some longevity. And everything I said about him earlier makes it sound plausible. It makes it sound like it's a thing that it would be a good idea to keep him around. But at the end of the day, you can't have nights like this. You can't have nights like you had last year against Troy. And to be honest, even in a winning effort, you can't have nights like you had against Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State should have been a game that the Jacksonville State game should have been a game like it was against Maine. We have kids that like football, not kids that love football. You got some that do love football, but you ain't got enough. And I think you're right. The majority of these kids like football. And you know something? I think one of those kids, and I don't like to point out none of these guys. I really don't. But I feel that J.C. French is one of those kids that like football. I think Brendan Harrington is another kid that likes football. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You got kids like Dalen Cobb that like football. And I'm not saying this to be a knock on them because it is what it is. But the guys who love football, you can see them. David Bedinga loves football. Camden Brown loves football. Marcus Sanders loves football. Brandon Tyson loves football. Pashawn Wembley loves football. Even though that he's injured, Josh Dallas loves football. And I think to an extent, I think O.J. Arnold loves football too. So you literally see there's a difference. And this may sound a little controversial. I'm starting to believe Chance Gamble. I think he loves football. But I think he's starting to be one of those guys that look like he just likes football. Jaquari Brown loves football. Taylor Bradshaw comes off as a guy that loves football. If we lose the state, it's going to be a riot in the borough. It's unacceptable that Helton and the entire coaching staff better be fired that following week 2-5. I agree. You can't show your face if you lose this game against Georgia State. One thing I will say, and I think some people don't want to admit it, but they will accept it. You beat Georgia State, you beat App State, and you walk away with a winning record. A lot of Georgia Southern fans will be okay with that. Is it a minimum standard? Yes. Is it something I condone? No. But it's a lot of people already on Helton's bad side. Or Helton's on their bad side. You lose next week, and you're going to have about 85 to 90%, probably higher than that, he's going to be on their bad side. Wonder why some GS students be rocking UGA stuff because they winning and make tough decisions on coaching changes when needed. Southern got to grow a backbone and make some moves when needed. Unfortunately, you're correct. Even when Mark Richt was the coach at UGA, they made some tough decisions. Even when Mark Richt was there, the only thing Mark Richt just couldn't get over the hump, but they made changes when needed. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys again. If Gavin Adcock, if that's his name, Adcock, Gavin, or yeah, whatever his name is, the country singer. If he never got on top of that bus, we probably would have had a couple more years of Chad Lunsford. Because no, you can say what you want about Jared Benko. Jared Benko really did not want to make a change. He kind of had his hand forced. So it's not necessarily a AD issue or anything like that. I didn't mean to be up this long because I'm supposed to be going to work in the morning. It is 12:30. I gotta get to bed, y'all. I love this conversation though. This was a really good one. I may need to do more lives and don't just wait until the end of the of a game. I may need to do this more often because I love the feedback I'm getting from you guys. I got next Tron's been here since like day one. I appreciate him. Marvin, the legend, Casey Wesley, and I know there's going to be some people in the comment section after this is live. They're going to be saying some things. Let me look. They're probably there now already. Let me look. Hold on, y'all. No, nobody commented. Okay. But I got to get up for work in the morning. But I think we need to do this more often where we honestly just talk about the team in this fashion. I need to do this more often. You not wait till a game is over and we'll talk about this. But I need to get up out of here. I appreciate everybody who came through. You guys are absolutely awesome. I'm going to get me some rest. And it's Friday, so hopefully it goes by pretty quick. But I hope the rest of the weekend go by slow. And how about them Falcons, man? Can they y'all think they can beat? Y'all think they could beat the Buffalo Bills? Hey, in all seriousness, man, on a Monday night in at home, I think the Falcons got a chance. I really believe the Falcons got a chance to beat the Bills, and that would be a statement game. That would be pretty cool, right? That would get us out of the dumps of what happened tonight. But I'll see y'all on the next one, man. Y'all be easy. Y'all be blessed. Absolutely trying GATA every time, all the time, and one more time. I'll see y'all on the next one. Y'all have a good night. Y'all be blessed. All right, y'all. Peace.